Hello chess friends, this is International Master Valeri Lilov, and today I would like to present to you some really good examples of recent Grandmaster fights that I find both instructive and highly entertaining. The first one is a game that impressed me quite a lot the first time I saw it. It was played between Levon Aronian and Magnus-Carlsen in the Alpha Box Norway tournament. Um, Aronian, I thought, played incredibly well in that tournament, and he had some, I'd say, almost masterpieces with his games. So, in the first game, in this game that you actually played against the reigning world chess champion, Magnus Carlsen, Aronian had the white pieces, and he started the game with d4, d5, c4, c6, and knight f3. Now, this is the Slav. If you know, the Slav is a fairly solid opening system. Basically, the main idea for black is to support the middle and make sure that he can further develop his pieces quite quickly. It's a pretty good opening. And actually, after that move of c6, white played knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, and e3. So to that point, everything was decent. Black played a6, white continued with b3, and as black moved his bishop upon the b4 square, white did bishop d2. I mean, nothing special. White's developing, he has a good structure, black does very much the same thing. Each side is developing in the best way possible, bringing out their pieces at the most useful squares, and relying on a more important control. So after the move that actually happened with knight bd7, white played bishop to the d3, as he was. And so after black castles, white continues with, actually white just castled, black continued to queen c7, bishop c2, and rook to d8. I don't want to say that the move of bishop c2 was that much necessary, but one of the reasons why white played it was to, first of all, protect the bishop and also guarantee the d3 square for the queen, and also set up what I would call a very relevant trap line. There is a great idea behind the move of bishop to the c2, and you're going to see what happens really after that shortly. Black plays rook to d8, and then white played a3. I mean, if you really look at the position after a3, the first thing that you see is that, indeed, white has an almost wonderful position. He's got the chance to challenge the black bishop, and essentially we're offering black a pawn. So, there goes the biggie. Why do we do that? Like, what's the reason for which we're actually giving him the chance to take that piece so that we just lose? I mean, it doesn't make much sense, right? Well, it actually does, and here is why it does. After black captures the pawn, I mean, he shouldn't have taken the pawn. I think that all black had to do is here to play bishop d6. Yes, of course, white gets some sort of advantage with the move e4, d6 to the e4, and knight x to the e4. We can quickly realize that after the exchange and recapture, white will control the center. But truth be told, I don't think that black is being all that bad. Okay, he does lack space, he does lack other type of control, but he will be able to survive it, most likely after knight f6 and c5. So, there is a good potential for black. But Carlsen decided, okay, this is a pawn that doesn't seem like it's going to be avenged anytime soon, so why not just grab it? And while white is trying to figure out a way to claim a compensation, perhaps this is going to be a really good opportunity for black to solidify. So why not? Now, this is an interesting point in which we're going to see the difference between good and bad pieces, and what the good pieces can do versus the bad pieces when an attack actually begins. So this is an amazing sequence that follows. Just check this out. First thing, obviously, is rook takes a3. Now, not a lot of people would ever commit to a move like this. I mean, it makes sense. Who would like to give away his rook? But you understand why that is a great move. Well, for one, it's because we need to be threatening him. And the rook takes a3 ultimately sets up a very beautiful attack. But also, the other reason why I think that this move helps is because when black captures with the queen, and he will, white is able to play c5, completely isolating it from play. The queen can no longer reach back and move down to e7 so it can defend. But more so, or even more importantly, so to speak, white is now going to be in a great condition to set out all the different tactical things and possibilities that he wants versus black. And this just, it's great. It's a wonderful idea. c5, setting up the advance, getting all the opportunities in play. So, what should black try to do? Okay, this is a good thing. What does he respond with? So we've locked up the black queen. Now black plays b6. His intention is clear. He'd like to force our pawn from c5 to move away so that basically black can come down and go right back to e7. It makes a lot of sense. Why not? It's a clear, good position for the black queen. He can move back. He can do e5. Now, this kind of sacrifice looks really terrible for white. I mean, if you look at it from this perspective, he is not ready, okay? He doesn't feel like he's got... I mean, most of white's own pieces are backward. Why would he actually have any initiative? Why would he have the advantage over here? What has white done to deserve being successful? This is a really... By the way, this is a really, really good question. It doesn't look like white's got anything. Not yet, at least. Not yet. So, what to do? Now, white picked up to play with b4, and this is a great candidate. I'm not just talking about the idea of defending the c5 pawn, which is definitely important. I'm talking about the fact that from this point on, all that white does to base his plan on is restriction. He applies a restrictive move after another, after another, after another, constantly keeping black down. Restriction is the key. Most people don't think about it that way, but you have to trust me, it is. The fact that black can't do anything and white has brilliant pieces is all we care about. And it is exactly what we care, what we want to have, what we want to do in a position to follow. So what's really happening in the next moves is quite instructive. Let's take a look, actually. Let's see it. First thing is after b4, obviously black plays knight e4. He jumped. I mean, black saw it. If that pawn is taken, there's going to be knight takes to the d5. So this is really not going to work very well for him. After that, knight takes to the d5 comes. Knight e7 is going to be played. b6 is hanging too. If on the other hand he exchanges on the c5, white's got knight b1. And that could even get worse, considering that this queen will likely get trapped being there. So it's so bad that it can get trapped. Now, knight e4 makes a lot of sense because it offers an exchange, and yes, even though it looks like the kind of bad exchanges, I mean, it loses a pawn, it loses material for black, we understand why he's doing it. If he ever wants white's initiative to stop, black must offer some material back. So once white takes it, black recaptures, and then he plays with the move rook to the b8. So this just makes sense. All right, I mean, okay, what is white going to get? Another pawn? But now if the pawn takes, suddenly black will play, I don't know, knight f6 or bishop b7, he'll be fine. See, some of you might find it a little hard to understand why black doesn't just go on easily with this and a5 and have a great game. And to show you this, I really feel like I need to bring a little more insight as to how black would have lost. It wasn't black's sole intention to exchange more pieces. He realized that the position is really not going too well. And if white takes to the d5, moves like knight e7 or knight c7 are going to be just the beginning of something pretty horrible. So knight e4 was more of a necessity. It wasn't necessarily something that black wanted to do. Now, he decided that given that most of white's tactics or the threats that he started are taken away, black could just play alongside with rook to the b8 and comfortably develop. I mean, after all, that sounds good. A couple more moves, and black will likely just deliver the move of knight f6, push the bishop back, and feel fine. Why not? Now that was his intention. It was a good intention. I like it. I think that black was right to think about developing in this way. Now what I would like you to do is to pause this video and try to think about this yourself. What, in your opinion, should be white's best way to try and take advantage and challenge black successfully or effectively in this position? Very important, very valuable position to discuss. What should white do now? You know, the very first thing that comes to our mind apparently is, okay, so we have to attack, we've got to do something. A move like bishop takes the c6 just wouldn't do it, because we didn't sacrifice an exchange just so that we could get a pawn back. Okay, if we wanted to get the pawn back, we would have done something different. In this case, all that white was really looking for wasn't so much taking the pawn, but rather making a move that would help him to continue. And the forcing move of bishop takes h7 became pretty powerful. That type of move proves what this whole tactic is all about. By taking the pawn away, we understand that suddenly black is going to be left with practically no defenses around his king. White's knight's going into g5, and the queen is then coming over to h5. Take a look at the black queen being completely isolated on the a3. It really has nothing to do, given that white's got moves like queen takes f7 coming along and all those type of resources. For instance, imagine the black plays now, like knight f6, for instance, and then in this case we can just play queen takes f7, king h8, and I'm guessing when queen c7, for example, here's one way to go. Bishop d7, knight f7 check, and then the rook is going to fall. I mean, this is just one part of it, and this is exactly what happened. But you understand, it's not so much about what happened. It's about why it actually happened. And what happened in this case was really great. Now white is able to take in the d8. He is able to very quickly, go against the opponent. And that was good. It was really, really great here. No trouble or any complications. Everything is great. Very, very good in this case. One of the really important things about a position like this is just to make sure you can keep the opponent back. And now white is just doing it beautifully. Not only that he will continue with the attack and the threats, but black is horribly down. He's down on the back. His queen from a3 is totally isolated. And there's just so much more that's going to happen. It's a crazy thing. So what really happened after queen takes to the b6? Well, black, seeing the fact that he cannot do anything like rook takes to the d8 or anything of that kind. I mean, he really did not like the fact that white was dominating this position. So what he decided to play was knight d5 in hope that perhaps this is going to help him. Does it help? Well, in a way, it looks like it. Yeah, sure, now why not? But then white plays queen a7. Rook takes d8 and e4. So in this case, white is attacking being a piece down. Not a whole lot of players are going to do that. But I want you to take a look. Ultimately, what we need to do is to focus on creating threats, putting pressure, and keeping our opponent back. With that move in mind, things are great. Black played queen takes to d3. Now you may be wondering, why did black didn't go this way? Well, it's because probably white would have played bishop g5. Queen takes b4, pawn to the e5, and black would have suffered in this type of position. And so we have the attack going, you get the actual threats, and it is brilliant. It's very, very good in this type of position. And quite nice. So actually, so one of the things that you would like to do, or you would like to consider in such a case, is a pressure and attack. So black plays, he can actually continue with the move of, I mean, he can play moves like queen to the d3, which is possible, but then we play with edicts to the d5, and that's quite nice. Queen edicts to the d, queen takes to the d2, queen c7 was a good idea. We are hitting against the black rook, plays queen g5, d-takes to the c in this type of position. Bishop c8 and now h3. Okay, queen d5, rook to the d1. Now, what is so interesting is that black continues to stay under a severe pressure. It is not about the tactics. It is about the pressure itself. That's all you want to do. Make the pressure and keep your opponent in the bad position. The more he has to stay in the bad position, the worse it's going to get. And that's what we're doing right here. We set up the attack, we continue keeping black under pressure, and we have him down. Let's take a look. What did black do? I mean, it's not very nice. Basically, black played with this e5, and that was the moment where I plays rook to the d3 here. It's not a bad idea. I mean, just you get to understand what we're actually looking for. The black rook being on the d8, defending, and the queen. It's like it doesn't really matter that he's got something. It doesn't matter that he's a piece up in this position. All that really matters is, can I keep my opponent, on the backside defending? And so this is really valuable in this position. No way on how he can escape. It's great. Queen e7, bishop f5, rook to the g3, and so this is very, very important. Now we have the opponent actually that's just fairly back. He's got the g7 that is going to be taken away, and so this is good. Perfect setup, a great way to go. And in case of bishop to the g6, queen g4. Now take a look. White's got less pieces, and in fact, it almost feels like there are more. Because it never matters what pieces you're using. All that really matters is what you're doing with them. So you see, currently, the biggest problem that black is having is that, in fact, actually, the current problem that black is having is the passive, the backward position. Then we can have a check on h4, then king g8, and then we have rook takes to the g. And it is perfect. So this is very, very important after that. Like what black did is he just resigned at this point. But if we go back to an earlier stage, it's interesting to see all these points again and find out what made it so bad. So going back, first stage, it's really here. A3. Sacrificing material just so that we could force our opponent to lose his control. When black captured on the a3, white played rook takes a3, forcing his queen to go up there on a not great position. And then we locked it out. We cut it off from its perfect, useful place. Most important thing was that once white actually pushed up with c5, locking the black queen, and then going with the b4, he lost the coordination. Black was constantly under the pressure and under the possibility for white to attack. So white had a chance to attack different ways in different direction, and it was very, very valuable. It was very strong. So that's all you would like to do. Most important thing that you'd want to be considering is the forcing moves. Don't look for anything else. These type of moves will constantly hold your opponent back so that he doesn't actually have the chance to escape so quickly. And white was very wonderful. It was really great with all these tactical sequences that kept black constantly on the defense. It was great. So, this was a great idea. Very important thing, and that's how Aronian won. Now, there's another very similar game that I would like to share with you, because it's just really instructive, and it shows a lot about pressure and initiative. So let me point that out to you. Let me show you this game that was played between Wesley So and Sergei Kuryakin, which is, in my opinion, very instructive. It has a lot of value to it. And let's take a look and see what really happened. Okay. So, first of all, basically, White started out with the moves of Knight of 3, Knight of 6, C4, C5, Knight C3, and E3. And I mean, this is a pretty good development. I mean, the first thing that we realize is that White is setting out for a move like D4. So he'd love to advance that pawn over there. Another thing is that the D5 is totally under White's command, so it's not going to take too long before we actually get this going. Black played E6, D4, D5, and A3. After which Black played A6, and then White exchanged. D takes the C, Bishop takes the C, and pawn to B4. And this was a wonderful setup. I mean, if you really think about it, just the fact that we're driving away the Black Bishop, and then we're getting the chance to develop quite quickly, is pretty good. White sets up the bishop on the B2. Again, it does start in a very nice, unpretentious way. Most people would say, okay, is this really, that big? Yes. All you want at this stage of the game is to make sure you develop your pieces in a nice, small, unpretentious way, and just look for a way to make more out of this. We'll figure out what to do next, but for now, let's turn the wheels on. Black castled on the short side, and then as soon as it was actually played, things look good. See, what is so great about this is that after White played with H3, H6, and Rook C1, it's easy. Whenever you're playing the opening, one of the most important things that you would like to get is an easy development. You're not looking so much at whether it's great or it's perfect. Is it easy? And if it is easy, then it's for you. You can make it. You could really realize it in different ways. So White knew that, and he was definitely going for this. Black played Rook E8, and so this way White played Bishop to the D3. So he actually, White delivers a pretty strong position for his bishop, which is exactly what we're looking for. A nice, brilliant place, no complications whatsoever. It's where we know what this is also all meant to be, which is center control and possibilities over there. But what's so interesting about this is the whole value of it. And the whole value is easy development. It's not about, are we going to develop strongly? Are we going to have any tactics? It's much more about, is it going to be easy? And White sets it perfect. It's a great way to go. It means a lot. And it is wonderful. So how does White really make it? Well, actually, after that move is played, Black played D takes to the C and exchange. Now, what Black thought is that this is going to be an equal position. And it sure feels like it. I mean, let's face it. It doesn't look like it's going to be perfect. It doesn't look like it's going to be great. It looks very much equal. So, what is it all about? What can we say about this position? Here's my thoughts. The first thing that you need to understand about a situation like this is that, number one, I mean, this is really, really valuable. Number one, you must, and I mean really, you must think about expanding. Pawn structure is literally everything in the endgame. So for this reason, one must expand. What you're seeing right here is that Black's got lots of backside pieces in that moment. And he doesn't feel like he could really make any sort of improvement. Doesn't feel like he's got any way to make them get better. That will be used by White, and I want to see how he's doing it. In endgames, nothing matters more than the opportunity to set your pieces better and make them work strong. That's all White wanted, and it's all he's actually doing in this position. The first rule of any endgame is make your pieces better. Now, of course, you want to restrict your opponent, and you'd like to use different resources to achieve this. But the first thing is, Can I make my pieces better? And so what white is able to do now is rook h to the g1. He's getting ready for g4, g5. Most of the, or at least the majority of the black pieces do not seem to be having all that much. And so white is going to use that for different opportunities, namely the chance to get that pawn to advance for the g4 towards the g5, and other possibilities are going to come out really nice. This looks good. Rook d8, bishop b1. Now, one thing you need to understand about endgames is that rushing is forbidden. That means no rush. If you let your opponent make the mistake, it is going to work a lot more effectively, a lot more important than if you try to push the position yourself. This was very clear and was actually the reason why white did not want to do any of this. What he really wanted was just to stay and keep it together. That's all we're looking for. Now we could see why black is going to have a little bit of a problem, actually, with this. It's not so much that he will lose the game, but he's going to have a little issue. Can't quickly open up. He cannot advance. So, that was a great thing. And what actually happened in this moment? Off the bishop to b1, black played with the move of knight to the e7. And actually after that move of knight to the e7, white plays knight d2. Remember that most endgames are all about taking the pieces into better squares. And with risk to sound a little repetitive, I'm going to say that because it counts. Literally, it matters most. What white has done now was knight d2, so black actually had to play this type of move. And in this moment, genuinely, white plays g4. He's setting up a really important move of pawn to the g5 when we can do it. So in case black exchanges, we can recapture. And yeah, it does feel pretty good. Rule number 1. Let your opponent to make a mistake while you keep improving. Every move helps white to get a piece in a better square. Now, this is not something to underestimate. And of course, black starts making slight little moves that undermine his position, like the move of pawn to f6. Yes. When you let your opponent to make those type of moves, you can be very successful because he is going to give you squares. Right now, with the f6 move, he's giving up on a very valuable square, the g6, which we take over. And then we have rook c1, and then we have rook to d1. And it's brilliant. Now, again, I don't want to say that this is good or bad. I just want to tell you that all you need overall is the possibility to stay well. Just stay better. Keep yourself strong. What we see is that while white keeps doing that, and he will continue doing that, black has a limited number of moves and possibilities, and he's got to just keep himself backward while white improves. This is great. This is really great. So what happened after knight e7? Well, rook takes d7, rook takes d, bishop b1. It's interesting to see how even a grandmaster can very easily lose a position like that. Why? Well, it's because this is a kind of situation in which you don't have a clear plan what to do or where to go. And when people don't have a clear plan of where to do or where to go, they tend to make mistakes. Okay? That is why I often advise stay and let your position grow. Exchange. Knight. Another mistake by black. A bad exchange which led white's knight to a perfect position. Then it leads his bishop to an even better place. Knight d5, pawn to f4. I mean, forget the rest. I just want you to look and see the real difference of white's pawns and possibilities as opposed to black. This is a really interesting idea. Every single move helps white to set out a piece and move it onto a better position against black. Now the bishop. And see, White did not do anything special to make this happen. He did not. Why was he able to do this whole thing then? Because black made mistakes. Very interestingly enough, you understand the real reason that gives white the possibility to be so successful. Just keep the opponent on the back side. King d3, it's followed by knight e4, and even f5. I mean, of course, along the way, black had to do some mistakes to allow this to happen. It doesn't go like this freely. He must help. But you give him the perfect opportunity to do so. And when the opponent does the mistake, we just take it. F takes to d, bishop takes to d, exchange takes, knight c5, and then the capture. Up here, we don't have that much of a pressure, like saying, okay, so I've got a big pressure that will kill him on the spot. It's not like that, not at all. It was much more about just the gradual, consistent improvement that white was able to do, which guaranteed a huge advantage in the long run, and that was so wonderful. It was so well played. It was so beautiful to deliver. That is what is so great. One of the things that most chess players do not realize, or at least they don't realize it too well, is how we can make something like this to work. Remember now, the secret to success is to build the position that eventually will help you to attack or exploit your opponent's position. But what is also very relevant, don't forget, is to let him mess it up. Do not try to outplay your opponent. Try to outsmart him. And one of the best ways to outsmart your opponent is to give him the ability. My dad actually used to call it, let him paint bullshit on the board. Literally, he used to say that because it was very true. When you're playing against a lower rated player, I mean, now we're talking about a world championship challenger, but imagine a lower rated player than you. He's not going to know what you're doing, and so he's going to start figuring out things. Now, if he doesn't have a clear idea of a plan or a specific goal, a lot of people try to move around and they weaken their position. I've seen it on any level. And this game is a very strong proof about that. To let the opponent make a mistake. White made a beautiful maneuver. He ended up with a passed pawn. And the game is winning. But there was not even a single chance for black to put a hold on everything that white did. And white was actually going for. What is important and most critical if we go back to this game is to see the simplicity on how white made it. This is how you win a game. You don't win a game by trying to be super creative. You don't win a game by sacrificing a huge piece and trying to beat Tao. Most people who do that fail. Because truth is, you can't. It's hard, and it also requires a lot of special features that your position may not have. Most likely it's not going to have. So what white did was really beautifully build up the position to the point where the attack was there. And of course that came with the help of black, who created the weaknesses that white was able to effectively exploit. That was amazing.